All right. This is Marshall Conley. I'm a consultant with the Geneseo Public Library. Today is January 18th, 2018, and I'm at the Geneseo Public Library with Virgil, Juliot. And so, as we talked about, Virgil, we're going to talk about your experience in the military, but we're going to start with some biographical information. So first, when and where were you born?
I was born September 22nd, 1925, at Lake City, Minnesota.
Okay. And who were your parents, and what did they do for a living?
My father, William Juliot, worked in a flour mill in Lake City. My mother was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay. And did you have any siblings?
One sister's 5 years older, and three brothers, a year and a half, 2.5, and 5 years.
Okay. And does anyone else in your family, parents, grandparents, those siblings, did they serve in the military as well?
My father was in the World War I at Camp Grant, Illinois. That's where he was for the 10, 12 months he was in.
Okay.
The biggest thing there was a flu epidemic. They were hauling him out, sick, dying, terrible. 1918, 17, 18. Then my one brother, a little younger than me, was in the Army. He was stationed out in North Carolina for a couple of years.
Okay. And did you were you in Lake City your entire youth, or did you live anywhere else?
I was there through high school.
Okay. Great. And then, what were you doing before you joined the service?
I just finished high school.
You just finished high school?
I did lawns and did work.
Yeah.
Earned a little money.
Okay. Then let's move on then. So you graduated high school. Did you enlist, or what happened? What's happened?
My birthday September. I enlisted the day before my 18th birthday.
Okay.
And you know the reasons?
Yeah.
The spring semester of my senior year, there was an aeronautics course in high school, and that kind of piqued my interest in how aircraft work, what they were. I had a lot of model airplanes I'd built, hanging in my room, and one part of that interested me quite a bit was on navigation.
Oh, wow.
There was a spot that kind of piqued my interest.
Okay. And that was would have been 1943.
43.
So World War II was
Yes.
happening. So
we're in the midst of the war then in
Yeah.
Germany and Japan.
Yeah. So what branch did you join?
I joined the United States Army Air Corps as a cadet.
Okay. And when you, so you were interested in aeronautics and navigation, and so obviously I think that sounds like that's what motivated you to join the Air Corps. What were your expectations? What did you think it was going to be like when you joined?
Well, I knew there'd be discipline, and that was okay because I knew what that meant. And, I didn't know how much schooling and learning. There was a lot involved with what I did. So I didn't know what it's going to involve, but I just wanted to get on and get going. I had no idea how long or what.
Okay. And so, the Air Corps probably would require some specialized training. So, what was the first training? What was that? What did you do first when you
came
joined?
in for 6 weeks? I don't know what you call it. Tests, exercising, and that, and see if we qualify. Some guys washed out; they didn't qualify. Various reasons. When I got through that, the Air Corps program, cadet program, prior to the war, required 2 years of college before you got into the program. Didn't have time for all that, but they sent us to college. I was sent in Ada, Oklahoma to teachers' college, what it was. And there was, I suppose there were 250 of us fellows at that time. And they put us through college courses and courses that the Army wanted too. So I was pretty involved in you had to be with it. And a lot of physical exercise with it too.
Mm-hmm.
That was 5 months.
Okay.
And most everybody got through that. If they had a problem, they wouldn't. But
and then what after that? After you finished at the college in Oklahoma, where did you go?
Well, I had a little break for about a month, which was just between that and the next step. The next step was going to the cadet center down in Texas, main town down there. My mind slips.
Like Houston or Dallas?
No.
Oh.
And, my mind is gone.
Oh, it's okay.
Anyway, that was the main cadet center.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many were in there. That was very strenuous, physical. A lot more in testing and learning and going through all kinds of things. We are cadets at not knowing where we would be positioned yet, just basic training.
Okay. And so you made it through that, and
yeah, that was about 3 months.
Okay. And then where did things go after that?
From there, near the end of that course of 3.5 months, you're assigned what position if you qualify.
Mm-hmm.
And I did get navigation, which fine.
Yeah, that's why you joined.
So then we went to navigation school, which was in San Marcos, Texas, is east of Austin, 40 miles, 30 miles. And that, of course, a lot more involved in all the training for all the things we had to know. And also we had flights, twin engine plane at that point. Most of the flights were from there up to Oklahoma and back, probably 5-6 hour flight at the most. And there might be 5 or 6 of us on the plane for training, looking through the drift meters and doing whatever we wanted. So that went on for, about 4 months. 4 months at least.
Mm-hmm.
That was rather intensive training. Then again, never knew if something came up, you wash out, that's it. You'd probably be a gunner or somebody else, mechanic, whatever.
Right.
So you never knew, and every now and then somebody disappeared, or they got the news.
Yeah. And so you made it through that training as well,
Yeah.
and then what happened after that?
When you finished the course, that was in December of 43.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a little confused. That wasn't December 43, was it?
Maybe if you joined in September of 43, that may be like towards the end of 44, yeah.
It had to be. And at that conclusion, we were commissioned.
Mm.
Some were flight off. I was commissioned as a second lieutenant. That was the highest, the most common. But some were not. They were flight officers or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know why, what the difference was. So then I might have had a break to go home then for 10 days. Then they assigned us to a crew where we met in, Clovis, New Mexico, on the eastern border of Mexico.
Okay.
That was one of the B-29 training stations. There were several around the country, I guess. And I was assigned to a crew. There were a crew of 11. Captain was air commander was a captain. That bombardier was a captain. There was a little bit of friction there, but on the ship, the commander was in charge.
Yeah.
And then there was a pilot, myself, and then there was a radar officer. He was an officer too. There were 6 officers and 5 enlisted men. 4 of the enlisted men were gunners.
Mm.
And then they were to watch the engines from where they could see them.
So what was it like to train on a B-29? So those were pretty big.
I didn't know where they were going to end up. That was the main thing then, and they're the biggest train we had. I had four engines, 2,000 horsepower each, so that was 18 cylinders, 9 in front and 9 in back.
Wow.
And they were pressurized.
Mm.
First plane that was pressurized. So we stripped down pretty much and be comfortable even at high altitude. It could be heat. However, on missions, you depressurize, because if you got hit, it would go poof. So depressurize, you had to put on, this is on the missions, you had to put on a flak suit, heavy metal thing over your head. I forget what else. Oh, had a parachute ready, in case you had to jump. A number of things we had to do and be ready for.
Wow. So
the crew, I got some training, but they were all getting training to do whatever they're supposed to be looking for. I remember one flight, we went down to southeastern, New Mexico, maybe it was into Texas. And the gunners had to shoot down to the ground level. I don't know where they would ever do that, but well, they would have in Japan. But, and there were a bunch of cattle that were killed. They got over in that area, so well, kind of.
What does the navigator do on the B-29? Where did you sit on the plane?
Right,
like, what were your main roles?
Try to remember all the things. Well, in navigation school, I began to learn some of we had booklets, thick pages of data on covered places all over the world. So if you were in that spot, you took these certain shots of certain stars, for instance, and you had to have the time. We had by Greenwich Mean Time all over the world. We had the same time. The charts were built around that. So whatever my time where I was on Greenwich Mean Time, I had that. You had to know approximately where you were so you could get your charts, looking up where your information for the angles and that. And in the B-29, you had a sextant that you could look at as an eyepiece, and the piece that you moved around until it aimed at what you wanted, the star. And there was a bubble in the middle, so you kept it level, otherwise it'd be reading off. And we had to get up in this 32 tunnels about 28 inches. Cramped. I don't know what the 6-foot cuff-foot guys did, but I down there with this, squeeze this little plastic dome, I guess you call it. You're looking through that to get the reading. Then you write that down, check your chart, your books, get that down, get down and get your compasses on the board in front of me, a compass, the airspeed, altitude, temperature, things I had to be aware of. And then I had to get these books out, get these figures. Had to do pretty fast because we're moving 3.5 miles an hour, 3.5 miles a minute. And 10, 15 minutes, we've gone quite a way before I get the figure. So I have to try to adjust that too to figure out where have we gone. So I don't know, it always worked out. It taught it, but you had to keep doing all this stuff and keep it in mind and do it in the right order. So it was kind of fascinating and kind of I hope this is right. I hope this is right.
It's amazing to see like planes now and to think of all the
Push
things.
a button.
Everything that happens that a person was doing then manually.
All that is already figured out within this material, but
Wow.
So we had to read the drift meter too. That was to read. You look down and you see the surface of this. Of course, we're over the ocean, most of the B-29, and if there were white caps, you could if there weren't, you try to find something that you could figure out so you get the angle of movement, how the air is blowing you, because you're not going straight, or maybe go sideways or whatever. So that was part of the figure. You had to get the wind and drift speed. How do you get the speed? Well, the air temperature and stuff off the speed. To figure that out too. There's a pile of things to do. We knew the sequence of the way we had to do it.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Shall I come back to our training?
Yeah, well, so you were doing the B-29 training in New Mexico, and then what? What next?
Well, we did all kinds of things, and had shorter flights for navigation. And near the end of that training, after January, about near the end of May, was my trial. They're going to test me out, and check me out. Well, before you make a flight, any flight training or any, we need to check the instruments, especially the compass. Well, the compass was way off. Should have had it corrected, or somebody could have corrected it if possible. He didn't give me any time. I told the instructor. The instructor was allowed to check me out.
Yeah.
Told the captain, I told the instructor, said that compass is not right. It's off. They want to get done with it. They want to get it because we're going to go home when this flight is over before we go overseas.
Oh my.
So, go to Clovis, New Mexico to near Chicago, Indiana. I don't know what all I did, but I got there. Came out and the Belvedere could figure there's huge furnaces down there, round and red hot, huge, I don't know, steel plants, I guess. So we got that. I came out fine. Oh boy. Turned to head back across Illinois and the road we were going to take. Huge clouds, man, 45, 50,000 feet high. Storms, so we're not going to fly through those. See, so I don't have a compass to know which way we're going now.
Oh my!
So I tried to follow that. And I asked the instructor, well, can I go and check up in pilots? Are not the best ones, but there's the compass up there. And then could I ask the radar man to check? Maybe I can pick up a river or something if I can figure it out on the map. No. Okay, so I don't know. I just sat back. We flew, and we came out over the Mexican border across the river.
Jeez.
So we knew we were there then.
Yeah.
And then we landed in southern New Mexico. The field wasn't very big, and then we got some gas and flew back a couple hours to our. Never heard a word. Never heard a word about that flight.
Wow.
Well, they knew that they made a mistake. I wouldn't need to correct that.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay. And then, so that you said, that was that was your test. You got to go home, and then you were deployed, or?
Then we had time to go home, but the navigators had one other thing to do, just the navigator, to learn how to read the radar scope. So they flew us over the Texas coast and out over the Caribbean Sea. And we were in a B-17, a little smaller plane. There was a few of us on that for this training. Well, when we got there, the plane started acting up. Flew out a ways and couldn't get anything done, so they come back and landed there. There, I'm stuck there, can't go home, can't get the training in. About 2 days later, day and a half later, maybe they picked us up and flew us back to our base. Then we had to get home. So I only got about half the time to go home.
Okay. And so you were home, and then you were assigned.
Then we were assigned a new plane. Many of them were built in Wichita, Kansas. So there's a field in Kansas where we met the crew, and they had a new plane and checked it out. They had tested it and then had it there. So we were to fly that over to the Pacific.
Oh.
So So we flew to California, then we flew to Hawaiian Islands, and then we flew, I think we landed at Johnston, I'm not sure. And we flew to Guam. That's where the plane was delivered. We didn't get to keep it. And they flew us up to Tinian, Guam, Tinian, and Saipan. Guam is Tinian's about 70, 80 miles north of Guam, and Saipan is about 5 miles to the east of Tinian. We had the biggest field in the world, 4 runways of 8,500 feet. There was another field down on the island. The island only had 49 square miles, it was small. There was another two runway field. And Saipan right across about 6, 7 miles, there was a field with 2 runways. And down in Guam, there were 2 fields with 2 runways each. So those are the main ones for we're the 313th wing. And we were the 9th bomb group in the 1st squadron. I think there were 45 planes at full strength for each squadron. For each, not squadron, each bomb group. And we had 3 bomb groups on our island, plus another bomb group that they were separate from us entirely. And we found out those were the ones that were trained to fly the atomic bomb.
Oh, wow.
Came off our field at our island.
Wow.
Okay. So you were in the Pacific in your bomb group, still navigating. So this would have been early 1945?
Well, we went over later because by the time we finished everything.
Oh, sorry.
We flew over there. We were there about the 1st of July, so we got in the last 5, 6 weeks of bombing. And then there were other things to do. But I don't know. Something about that bombing history. They started in February from these areas, but the fields were still being built, and there were Japanese around yet. In fact, there were some there when we were there, but they come out and sneak to get supplies for food, but they'd go back in the caves, I guess. We found out because 2 guys were going to go hunting around the side of the island. Japanese killed them. And that was stupid. You were fooling around. But at the beginning of the bombing in February, March, they were doing what we were designed to do. We're a high altitude bomber. We carry about 20,000 pounds if we could carry a full load with the gas. And they were flying, I wasn't there then, but this is the story. That was, 30,000 feet. Well, didn't know about jet streams then. I mean, if they did, they didn't realize. They're coming off of Asia, out of China across. And they blow these planes that were dropping demolition bombs, big ones. And they'd be drifting sideways or slowed down, moving ahead, speeding up, going, they didn't know what was going to happen. So they weren't hitting targets at all, they said. So Curtis LeMay came in as the new commander of that whole region. And he said, we're changing this. We're going to fly in at 5,000 and 6,000 feet. The fellow said, you mean 15,000? No, 5,000. You're down there with everything flack, you know.
Yeah.
But then they carried firebombs or incendiaries. I think they're 50-pound bombs, so they carried tons of that. And so in March they started doing that. They did it to all the major cities in Japan. I was told that somebody said there were about 49 square miles of Tokyo gone, burned out. We weren't to touch the palace there, so they never touched that with the bombs or anything. But killed a lot of people, or they had to flee their homes. The reason I was told they did this, he said they're making some parts, small parts for some of the equipment and machines they have for war. Well, I suppose they did. I don't know. So that really devastated Japan. And we dropped some firebombs in the city too with it. Another thing they did, I think just before I got there, there's our group that did it, 9th group. There's an inland sea in Japan. There's an entry into it and an exit over here. There's the land here and there. And they had a lot of shipping going into especially unload of oil and products they needed from the South Pacific. They had no oil in Japan, so we shut off that ability to get them in there.
Mm-hmm.
And they dropped bombs. They dropped not bombs. My mind. Whatever goes into the water will detonate when the ship comes by. But they could make them. They had them. Some would detonate right away. Some wouldn't detonate for several ships or several times. So they never knew how many were going to go off. And they kind of stopped a lot of the shipping and getting supplies too. And the group, I don't think they lost any planes in that one. They came in low and just went over the dropped from the entry. My first flight there was to, I think it was Marcus Island, I forget the name, about 3.5 hours out. We were a lead ship of 3 that were being sent out to test us, but it was dropping bombs. These islands were, a lot of these islands were still occupied by Japanese. They lived underground, they dug tunnels, lived in caves. So they survived it. But when I wondered how did they get enough food to eat? We had thousands on a little island. Anyway, we went over that island, we dropped our bombs down the runway, kind of pockmarked it a little bit. They'd fix it up again. But then another flight we were on, and we're getting up to Japan. Our third engine was cutting out, so they had to shut it off. They feathered the props so it wouldn't be pushing, turning. So we got about to the coast, and so we could do this. So we picked an alternate target, so we get credit for the flight. And so the bombardier picked a town along the coast, a smaller village. But he said later, he said, well, we dropped all the bombs in the water. I didn't want to kill people.
Oh, wow.
So we got credit for the flight anyway.
Yeah.
And another flight, a lot of planes, we never went out in formations. I think they had, but we didn't. But they'd assign us a time and an altitude, so hopefully we wouldn't run into one. One time we just about hit another one, but anyway, we were going up, and man, the clouds were building up. We're not up to Japan yet. These huge clouds were building up. In fact, we couldn't see where we were going for sure. Well, everybody flying up there, hundreds of planes. We got 60 miles off course with the wind that blew. Finally got to see the shore and pick out, we got straightened out, but we had to straighten out our way to go to our destination. Mm-hmm. So everything, it wasn't that smooth. You never knew. Mm-hmm. Then some of the craft, they were not sending up any fighter planes. That when we were there, they hadn't done it for months. We were told they were saving them for the invasion. And they don't have that many, they don't have much gas, I presume. So at that point, we didn't, but any aircraft would pop all around you, these puffballs. And it might have hit somebody once in a while, but that's where it was.
Mm-hmm. Probably a lot different doing all the calculations and map work when that's happening than when you were in training.
Well, I hope I had it all ready done when we were at the.
Yeah.
Then we turned left and had to do it again.
Yeah.
Get us to the right home. Always got there though.
Yeah. So that was 1945, and then you were doing missions in the East, and then we dropped the atomic bombs, and then what happened? The war was ending. What were you doing at the time?
Well, I knew that can't remember the name of the ship now that brought them. You can see it's just offshore. We had no real harbor on our island. We didn't know what any of this. In fact, that people of that 509th Composite Group didn't really know. Just the head man captain that dropped the first bomb, and the bombardier, maybe a couple others knew that what they were trained for. Most of them had no idea. And they were only 15 planes, as I understand, where we had 45 in our groups. And first one was dropped I don't know, a few days after they got aboard. They had a hole in the ground, I saw later there. And they had to put that in because it's too big to get underneath the plane, get it in the bomb bay.
Mm-hmm.
So they had put these bombs there and worked on whatever they had to do. And they lifted them up into the bomb bay, lifted it up, and that way they could get it loaded and put it on their flight. Now, I don't know, they've had plenty of all about that flight. I've read all about how those flights, how they had to maneuver and handle things.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 2 or 3 other planes along with them to do both photography and keep an eye out.
Mm-hmm.
So the second flight was a little more, a lot of difficulty. You don't read about much of that, but
yeah.
I think they deserve more credit that they got their bomb off. They didn't know that things were going to work.
Yeah. So, World War II was ending. Did you come home? Did you stay stationed in the east?
Around the middle of August, I forget the date. We'd been bombing right up to that
Mm-hmm.
time. We didn't, even though they were talking about
Oh,
the meeting and that, but we didn't quit. Then they put us, I don't know, the 12th of August, maybe, I don't remember the date. We made 1 flight or 2 in there, I think. But then on September 2nd is when they had the Missouri came into Tokyo,
Mm-hmm.
and they had MacArthur and some others aboard, and the Japanese on board, and they signed the papers. And the second, we had a show of power, as I understand they call it. Got all the planes they could up, B-29s that they could up in the air, and had 800 or more that were flyable, that they could get up there. They probably had more, but that's it. Well, I was assigned to a different crew that time. I didn't even know them. I don't know why, but that plane was assigned to fly over South Korea. So I had a little different planning with the maps and whatnot.
Sure.
And a little longer flight than some of them. But that's what we showed Japan we're here. We had a lot of craft. A friend of mine who was in the Army, who lived here at the time, said he was with the Army, he was a lieutenant. They had all kinds of landing craft in the islands, not far from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So we were getting ready for it. There would have been, and it bothered me. We dropped the atomic bomb. Oh, we killed all these people, bang, you know. It's bad, but that's war.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese Army had no pity on anybody. Through China, you read about it. It was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Killed. And so I forgot what I was doing now. Anyway, on that day, we had all these planes flying up there. It's a show of power.
Mm-hmm.
And they were signing that, and I was over Korea. Oh, on the way back from Korea, I had it down to my mind. So the second atomic bomb was dropped on the town.
Nagasaki.
No, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, our flight from Korea was close to us, so we altered a little. We flew a huge black ring, probably a few miles across, where that bomb had been dropped there,
Wow.
Nagasaki.
Yeah.
So we could see what had happened to that area. Terrible. Anyway, we lost planes now and then, but mainly not because they didn't have aircraft coming up.
Yeah.
I should say one incident. One plane called the Mariana Bell was one that we flew in several times. It already had about 30 missions, and they usually send them home after 35 or 40. We met the crew that had been with it originally for many, many flights. They'd already gone home. And friends of our crew flew in. This was after the first atomic bomb had been dropped. And they were up over the inland sea, and they kind of over Japan and coming back. Well, this time they sent their fighter planes up. They hadn't been doing it at all. Well, now with the atomic bomb, so they went. And the Mariana Bell and his crew, they got banged up. But the shooting, they lost the controls that were the hydraulic and that. They couldn't. But he said he steered it mainly by speeding engines up on one side and then the other to get the course, and the navigator. When they got back a couple hours, it slowed them down a lot. 3 hours or to Iwo Jima, they radioed in, said, we got to jump. So some of them landed on the island with the 11-man crew. Most of them landed in the water. They all were saved. And the plane went in at the end of the Mariana Battle. And we landed there, I said, the one time with the one engine out. And then we got a ride with somebody else to get back to our island. But that island, they say a couple thousand B-29 landings were there. Short of gas earlier in the war, and then trouble. So it costs dearly to take that island, but it saves an awful lot of aircraft and air crews.
So, after the war ended, did you stay in the service? Did you?
Well, I had to stay over there. And then you went home by points.
Yeah.
Time in the service, whatever you did. One of my friends, he had somebody in the legislature. He went home in about 2 weeks. So you know how that worked. Well, I went in at 18. I had so many months, so many missions. So we were there till January, and then they flew what was left. About 45 planes. They probably had about 15 or 20 planes left. They moved our group to the Philippine Islands. So that's where we ended up. And then, the story with that. It was all right. Had no choice. And then I got a friend of mine who was a radar officer, radar man, and we were good friends. We were assigned to a plane going back to the States. So we got on, we flew. I was the navigator. Got us to Guam, got us to, South Stewart, and then got to Hawaii. We got bumped. Somebody else flew the plane back to the States. So horrors of horrors. We had to spend a whole month in Hawaii. Go down to the beach and get a board, travel.
Yeah.
Then they sent it back to the Philippines. So I was there until August. Then they put me on a boat. Victory ship, they call it. 18 days across the Pacific to get home. So, but I was in just with the term of left again, I was in 3 years. Well, something I had no knowledge of to begin with, but after I was in a year and a half, Truman signed the bill for people in the service, and that included college.
Oh, the GI Bill.
GI Bill, yeah. And so I had enough to cover all my college, all the seminary, cover my, which I had never planned on, but thank God. I'm going to tell about another. After the war was over, we were still on Tinian. The plane was coming from, not Taiwan, another island there. One of our bases that was new. There was a general on the B-29. We're coming across to Guam. This was about a 5-hour flight. 6. Went down. There was high seas. The weather was not too good. So they disappeared. They're gone. So they sent us out. They gave us a map of this whole section. They gave us a section of maybe, I don't know, it was probably 25, 30 miles this way, maybe 40 miles this way. And we were supposed to go back and forth. I don't know the heck of a job to navigate because I couldn't get much time to do any drift reading or anything. We made all day at that. Well, a couple of days later, there was a cage outside our headquarters of our little, nothing's fancy, cage, and there's a monkey in a sassy thing. They said, some of our guys had seen something in the water, but I can't believe this. But they said, well, that monkey was probably the only thing left from that airplane. He probably was down in the nose wheel. I don't know. Anyway, we had that monkey in our.
So you said, so you finished in what year? What year did your service end?
I was on this boat and got home September 1st, 1945. Yeah.
Okay. And then you went to school right after?
No. then I had signed up to go to school in Minnesota that I was aware of. But I just got home and they wanted me to start in a couple days. I said, I want to be with my family.
Right.
They wouldn't give me any extra time, so I said, well, we'll forget this for now. So they extended my vacation through October, so I had a full 3 years, just about 3 years. So I got all the credit.
And then you said you mentioned you went to the seminary, so were you clergy?
I kind of been pointed that way. I used to have to get up and talk to people. Some classes you had to get up and give a little 5 minutes something or other.
Right.
But I felt this was right. So I went to, I didn't start that fall, but in the winter, I went to Winona Teachers College, so I got 2 quarters in there to get my credits. And then in the fall, I went to Gustavus, where I originally had signed up, and got my last 2 years in. And I had to get languages, and I didn't have any of 3 languages. Terrible, I hate languages. But so that I got that. Then I went to the seminary in Rock Island, August on the seminary.
Okay.
So everything seemed to fall in place as I went along. I didn't know if I'd be a navigator. I didn't know if I'd stay with what they do with me, but I guess I qualified and did the job, so that was it.
So are you after your service and until now, did you stay active in veterans groups or participate in honor flights or anything like that?
Not really. I thought of it, but I had enough time involvement with other things I was doing. I felt I just couldn't take time for that with the direction I wanted to go.
Okay. And then, so thinking back, kind of reflecting on the whole experience, you shared some really interesting memories. So what do you think what is the biggest impact on your life that your time in the military had?
Oh boy. Well, I don't think this falls through in life. There are challenges, there's goals to meet. I'd work on it to get there, and we always seem to get there. And that's true in civilian life too, or in whatever profession or whatever work you do. If you think of it, you have to meet certain requirements and goals. So that was kind of very much evident when I was in the military. I didn't think of it at the time, but I think that followed through. It kind of set the pace.
Yeah. All right.
So that was beneficial for me. Now, if I was down in the trenches shooting a rifle, it'd be different. I don't know. That's one thing I didn't want to do, I know.
Yeah.
But that would be a very different experience and what it meant. But all the things I went through, all the training, all the goals and expectations, I kind of carried through with all of it. So I thought, well, we'll get there.
All right. Very, very good. So a couple of just extra questions to make sure we get everything. Did you win any awards or commendations?
Nothing special, just the ordinary thing that pin on your overseas. So many missions or whatever. I don't have any of that stuff. I have no idea what I did with it.
Okay, and then
the way I figure out I'm through with this, I've done this, I'm done with it. I got other things now. And veterans would be fine, but I felt I just didn't have the time to spend with that.
Anything else you would add? Any final message? Anything you want kids in 20 years that view this video, maybe for a project for school, what would you want them to know about service and military and serving our country?
Well, you don't have all the opportunity to make choices and to be guided in something, but if possible, I think if you have where you can see goals of something you feel you need to do, you want to do, and achieve it, and then move on to whatever the next thing is. There's certain satisfaction I never thought of at the time, but there is. But also, if you're pushed into things you don't want, that's the choice. But I was fortunate enough to. I never thought at the time, but everything fell in place, just move on.
Yeah.
And I survived it, so.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Very
Well,
good.
great. That's what we have. So thanks very much. We really appreciate the time and sharing with us
Well, I
your story.
never did anything like this before.
Well, we were really